Hello, everyone. I know there's no one joined right now, but whenever you do see this video, I just wanted to preface the video by going through a process that I'm putting myself through, in a sense. There's some events that happened recently that were these kind of crucible events, if you would like to call it. I kind of had some, in a sense, panic attacks recently where everything just became overwhelming to me. Just all of everything in the news and YouTube and just the whole sphere of my input and output. And it got to a point to where it became too much for me, and I wasn't letting it out, and I wasn't giving outlet to those things and to those thoughts. And it really put me in a hole. And my dogs are in the room, by the way, just letting you know. If you hear them like moaning or growling or anything, it's just, they're just messing around. But yeah, it definitely put me in a hole in the ground. It's, something me and my girlfriend are working through, but it really brought me to this place of kind of uncomfortability. So this kind of place of just, that was really uncomfortable, and it kind of brought me through the whole process to the knowing that I have very little control, that we as human beings have very little control over our lives, over our mind, and what little control we do have, we very rarely develop completely or optimally. And usually we outsource those parts we generally don't develop to other people who seemingly might have a better idea on how to develop those things than we do. And that's not necessarily a bad idea or anything like that. I kind of go into it in some of my podcasts, but one of the things for me that I'm working on right now is I'm working on just breathing through everything, because I look around, and a lot of times, I'm not saying anyone in particular, but a lot of times there's when something stressful comes up for most people that I see, they do something to help them with it. They give themselves something, a drug or a supplement or something like that. And I very, very rarely see people going through a stressful situation and not, getting a cigarette or not doing something to just alleviate whatever it is, the rage or the emotion, the raw energy. And I've seen this a lot. I've seen it happen a lot. And I saw this behavior start to form in myself, where if something stressful or something challenging came up, I would try and bring things in that would help me accomplish it, instead of just being okay with what I'm capable of as a person, which usually isn't developed in most people until they have access to all of the things that we have access to in this day and age, which is technology and all of the tools that we have access to, relationships we have with them that are undeveloped. One thing that I've been working on is just being okay with myself and what I can do. and what I can accomplish, how hard and how long I can work is one thing. Being okay with just me, being okay with what I have, being okay with what I say, being okay with what I do, just being okay with it and not needing an external thing to help me feel better. There's definitely a spectrum of this, so you should probably eat food, give you energy, stuff like that. But anytime I would get stressed, I would always look for something to cover that pain and cover that void that I felt in my body. And I didn't know until I stopped doing those things, stopped giving myself those, I stopped filling that void. Whenever I stopped doing that, I realized that that void is there for a different reason, and that void gets filled by something. And it's very uncomfortable, and it's very human. It's a very intimate experience with your mortality. It's an intimate experience with the transient nature of existence and of reality. So during this process, it was very uncomfortable. And I faced the fact that a lot of our bodies and a lot of our, what our brain is and what it does, and a lot of this and a lot of the external world, the nation, the state, the society, the international relations, all of these things we have very little control over. But we still avoid, in a big respect, we avoid the confrontation of this fact that the little control we do have is not developed enough. And so it feeds into the feedback mechanism that I talk about a lot. And it's one of the reasons why people don't like to think about it, is because whenever you start to think that way, you start to say, there are things that I don't have control over. To the ego, to the mind, the analytical brain, that is threatening. That relates to death. And that is what death is the surrender of this thing that you've spent years building up and growing into and growing to love and appreciate, is surrendering that and giving it up to the unknown, the unknowable, the inconceivable. And it is the hardest thing to do, is to just be with yourself, because your real human self is a very uncomfortable place. A lot of people would say that it sucks. And I've been kind of on this sobriety thing where I don't drink coffee to stimulate myself. I don't even really listen to music, because a lot of people do that as well. A lot of people don't understand that music is also a drug. A lot of people listen to music to make themselves feel better. Let's say just about a task or about something. So they listen to it, and it helps distract them. And some people do it to get into a focused state, to get into a rhythm of sorts. The problem arises when you can't summon a rhythm, when you can't summon a focus, when you can't summon those good feelings without it. And it comes from not having the strength not having the mental capacity and willpower to do that. Because in order to get to those amazing states without the stimulation, you have to trudge through muck. You have to trudge through hell in order to get there. And I will tell you that from experience because it has been incredibly uncomfortable for me all along the way. And at every turn, every time you're stressed, every time there's something that you need to do or that you want to do, there's the immediate calling to surrender, to sacrifice your own expression and your own ability to something else. Oh, you need to write a paper? Why don't you have some coffee? Oh, you need to do this? Why don't you listen to music while you do it? And there's this entity that arises that is a part of you. It's a part of your mind. It's a part of the infinite maze of your consciousness. It's like this challenger that comes up. It's testing you. And basically what it's doing is it's trying to alleviate it. It's trying to be a distraction. It's your mind trying to alleviate that stress. Well, it's not even a stress. The revealing that you can do everything that you want to do without any help at all. But it is much harder. It will demand more of you than you can imagine. And to be innately human, to just be and nothing more, and be okay with that, is one of the hardest things you can do. And it happens to be one of the most important things that you need to do in order to create relationships with things, in order to get out of the prison that so many of us are confined to. We have to transcend the chains, and the chains are that thing in your mind. Every time you go and do some homework, oh, I gotta get some coffee. Gotta get some coffee in me. Get a good buzz going. There's an enormous problem. There's your human self starts to rot away when you cannot access that buzz or that focus, concentration, attention. When you can't do that on your own, through your own expression, your own resonance, your own process, your own expression, when you can't do that through your own body and your own brain, what happens is that your body and your brain begin to rot away. And this has been happening a lot. Whenever you outsource your brain to other things, whenever you outsource your physical brain, what you think, what you say, when we have tools like calculators and all these different things that help us do things, we pull out our phone at every instance to look something up that we need an answer to. It shuts off the part of your brain that has to do that kind of calculation, because your brain is just a computational system. It's just a computer. So whenever you introduce things that give you a push, what it does is, if you haven't already accessed your complete and full potential, which I don't think anyone has, it is a crutch. It is literally just telling your brain that it doesn't need to work very well anymore. It's telling your when you wear shoes or supports in them, shoes in general are dysfunctional, at least the way they've been made. You need to recreate them. But shoes with supports in them telling your body, oh, I don't need to create structural integrity in my feet. I don't need to be able to, um, screw my feet into the ground, create torque in my hips, in my, in my legs, and everything. Be able to apply force organically on objects. I don't need to do that because now I have a comfy little case around my foot that keeps it stable. But what your body really wants is to be unstable, is to be uneven. And there in that place, it becomes strong. So when you're in that place that I've been in for quite a while now, the past couple weeks maybe, or the past week actually, it's really hard. But that's the thing, is that it's so unknown, and so it almost seems like there's no structure around it. Oh no, it's gonna fall down. Oh no, you're gonna hurt your ankle if you don't have a shoe on. It's that kind of mentality that enslaves an entire population. So it outsources all of our human potential and all of our human ability to other entities, to other groups of people or institutions or whatever you want to call it. And this is what I've been going through, and I wanted to share this with everyone and kind of bring everyone in on it, at least the people who watch it, just to get a picture of what my process has been recently, which has been very interesting, but also, in my opinion, the most constructive thing I've ever done for myself in my entire life. Being able to breathe, just whenever something comes up, just breathe deep, just breathe through it, and trust yourself. That's a big thing that I've been developing, is I have no control over all these automatic systems, in my body, in my mind, all of these things that are, automatic almost, that seem, but are not. They're not automatic, but over them. I don't have control over my organs and my lungs, all the time. I can put attention there, and I can breathe. I can breathe really deep, but usually all of that stuff is automatic. I don't beat my own heart. What is there stopping my heart from beating? What I don't have control over that. I don't have control over my life systems in my body. I don't consciously think of them. And this is a really uncomfortable place to get to, because you don't. You are not some kind of weird identity. You're an organism. Your consciousness, what you can attend to, is very little in this life. I'm not saying there's not a lot to do with that little bit, but it's very little compared to the processes that happen in your body, the billions of organisms, trillions of organisms that live in your intestines, just everything. It's just so overwhelming that what control we have over this life, our decisions, what we say, what we do, what we feel. There's very little, and that very little needs to be developed. It needs to be picked apart, unwound, get all the strands unwound out of it. We need to really focus back on it and retrieve those abilities that we have that are latent. So this kind of relationship has existed for a long time. This kind of, these certain entities and institutions that prey on people's weaknesses, their weak-mindedness, their 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 softness. This has been happening for so long. How many layers of our DNA, of our biological expression, lay latent in our bodies because of this programming, because of these institutions and people that don't want empowerment for you. They want you to be dependent on their stuff, dependent on their service, dependent on what they do to achieve just being okay with yourself. And that's the thing that it's really hard for a lot of people to do, is just be okay with this, because it's a big fucking mess. Your body is mostly microorganisms. It's mostly other things. It's mostly just little weird creatures. You're an amalgamation of creatures. You're an amalgamation of life. You are the universe. You are the earth acclimating together. You are just clay and dirt and elements and all just the freaking crucible. You are all of this stuff, amalgamated into a focal point where all of these things work together so that you can exist. It is divine, because all these parts separate from you don't work. And that's one of the biggest things, is that you are just an amalgamation of things, amalgamation of processes. And that's very uncomfortable for people to get behind. What is really comfortable for people to get behind, what's very comfortable to get behind, is identity. What's very comfortable to get behind is icon or iconism, which is what I go into. What's very comfortable for people is being an identity, because it's guaranteed, it's a construct, it's a matrix. Because in that place, you can be whomever you wish. You can be anyone you like. In the matrix, you can think, I'm not gonna die. You can think this body will remain after death. You can think all sorts of things that might not actually be true at all. That might not actually be grounded. Not saying that life after death isn't grounded or something, but what I'm trying to say is you can believe many things because they are more like distractions from the uncomfortability of not really knowing what it is. Not really knowing what it means. And being okay with it. And being okay with the process. Being okay with, everyone always says it's not the destination, it's a journey. And I myself have lived my entire life living in pursuit of a destination of some sort. Living in pursuit of the end product. Living in pursuit of the tool, the technique, the practice, instead of having my expression and having myself be primary, be primal, be primordial. And whenever you do this, whenever you get these things off yourself that are attached to you, like in the Matrix when Neo was in the pod, and you see him come up and he has all these things in his body, sucking his life force out of him into these batteries that fuel these huge AI ships. That is quite possibly literally what's going on. So those are extraction technologies that I'm talking about, the ones that prey on your weak-mindedness, they prey on your weakness or your softness or your vulnerability to want to be comfortable with all this. When you don't want to address that, there are these extractions where these little things come in and take that away from you, take that life force away from you, that blooming expression as a human being that you are organically. And these extraction techniques go all the way down through language, through technology, through everything. I call it the many heads of Hydra. There isn't a single point where you can just cut off the head because two more grow back. It is a program. It's a language thing as well, linguistic. So one of the things is when you're in that pod, when you're in that disgusting thing, and your human body has never even moved. It's just been in the like an artificial womb outside of the womb. And in that movie, there wasn't a womb. You're just born in farms and extracted into these pods, and then we were used as batteries for the systems. And that's what people are used as now. We're used as batteries for these institutions and these entities. We're used as crops. We're now, for the most part, we're seen as products. We're not seen as humans. We're not seen as human beings, because that is peripheral. Because that doesn't fit into the agenda. And whenever you get these attachments off yourself and you realize that your real self has never even taken a step, it's never even opened its eyes to see, to look, to actually see, to actually look. You will be like in that one of the scenes where he's like, okay, he's like, why do my eyes hurt so much? And Morpheus says, because you've never used them before. And that's because a lot of people go through their whole life, their real human self has never even taken a glance at the world, where it is just beaten down to this little weak creature. And that's how it was for me. My whole life, my whole existence has been that. Has been my true expression, my true human self being dormant and being docile and being submissive, being subversive, being subservient. My primal self has always been in love with the prison, in love with the cage, the invisible prison, one that you cannot taste, touch, feel, see, or hear, but that surrounds your mind, surrounds your body. And this prison isn't what most people think it is. You can stay attached your whole life, just being sucked dry by these literal vampire organisms, these opportunistic entities, opportunistic organisms. You can stay You can stay attached to these things, or you can take that autonomy back. You can start to question the things you do. You can start to address the relationships that you have to your life and to the things in your life. And then, and only then, will you be able to reclaim that aspect, that primal essence that is your human self, that is your body and your brain and your environment, because the self expands far beyond society and science and what everyone has told you. And the self has been molested in many ways over the years by people who have tools to access aspects of the self. And it is time for us to reclaim that for ourselves. It is time for us to break the chains and take the reins. It is time for Zion, like in the Matrix. It is time for the reclamation of Atlantis, the reclamation of our God selves, which is the furthest and greatest potential for the pure human power and potential. Now, this can only be achieved when you access and you put importance on yourself first and foremost. And this is what I've been doing recently, is I've been creating boundaries for all of the things in my life. And if the thought of coffee comes up, I'm not demonizing coffee. I love it. It is a wonderful tool to access greater and greater focus, stimulation, all of these things. I'm not saying tools are bad. I'm not saying coffee is bad. I'm not saying any of these things that I'm stopping are bad. And I'm not perfect. I'm not like, I'm not completely unplugging myself from everything that I have. I'm on a YouTube live stream right now, so I'm using technology. The thing is when you don't have this taken care of, when you're not prioritizing yourself as in your own expression over the expression of everyone else, and just all the relationships I talked about. So one of the things is that you have to re-access this part of yourself, re-access your primal self. And that word primal means prima, primal, prima. It means first and foremost. It means where you start, where you plant your seed, where you place your flag. So this is me. This is me. No matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how messy and weird and crazy it is, no matter how unfathomable and inconceivable and just imperceivable it is, and its immensity and perplexity and complexity, no matter what, I'm planting my flag here and I'm defending it because it is me. No matter what, it is me. And then when you create boundaries for yourself for things, you begin to understand the relationship it has with you. And this is what I've been going through, is understanding that I have been in a prison for a long time. A prison of my own mind, a prison of the mind, of the body, of everything that I hold dear as an individual has been under threat and under attack my whole life. And I've never ever gotten to experience what it's like to just be myself and not have these stimulations on my life, not have these crutches for my mind and for my body. And it's been very constructive for me. It's been the most constructive thing for me ever. And it kind of was sparked by a conversation that I had with my girlfriend, whom is the most important person to me. She's helped me out in this process the most of anyone in discovering this part of me, this aspect of me. And I could never give her enough credit for that. But it was sparked by a conversation with her about it, because I had been avoiding it. I'd been avoiding this uncomfortable zone. And I had always wanted the technique, the finished product, the practice, the construct over everything else. So when I saw Kung Fu, when I saw someone doing Kung Fu, I'd be like, I want to be like that. But you only see the finished product. You don't see the whole process that goes into forging and creating this finished product. Oh, I want to do, personal training. I want to do any of these things. Because people want the finished product. They want the illusion more than they want the reality. Because the reality of the situation is that process is uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. Messy. Crazy. Insane. All of that. If you want to be amazing, if you want to be successful at something, that's the process that has to happen. It's uncomfortable. If you really want to be amazing, it has to happen from you. If you really want people to respect you, if you really want to have confidence, if you really want to have an alpha mentality, you have to prioritize your expression over everything else. You have to prioritize your organic nature. You have to prioritize your being over everyone else's. And to a lot of people that sounds selfish, but you put yourself first. Okay? You put your expression first. And then everything else outside of you is then addressed. Okay? Because if you don't address the self under all this stuff you wear, all these things you do, all this stuff you take, you're just a weakling. You're a bitch. And I mean that in a derogatory sense. You need to get angry at the fact that yourself, without all of these factors, is weak, is soft, is like Play-Doh, just a blob of shit. You need to get angry. You need to really get that primal energy back. Be like, no, actually, I'm just fucking fine. Okay? I'm just fine without your stuff. I can breathe through anything that happens to me. I don't need your supplements. I don't need any of this shit. Then when you do that, you create a new standard for everyone, for everything in your life. Because then you can say, okay, I will use that. It will not be using me. I will use that. It's a tool. Oh, interesting. Let me use this for this. You can create intention in it. Because if you have the other relationship to it, if you have the relationship of it's helping me, then its intention is going to dictate your experience. So that's definitely something that needs to be brought up, is that relationship. And I'm making my next video is going to be all about that relationship. It's called the primal and the matrix, primal and matrix relationship, and how you go from being at that baseline primal state, which is uncomfortable, messy, scary, honestly, confronting mortality, confronting all of this breaking down one day into dirt and inorganic elements, or whatever you want to call it. When you break down to the baser building blocks of life, now to me that doesn't sound very bad, because we're made of carbon, we're made of elements, and these elements accumulate to create expression, to create organic expression. So whatever force, intelligent or not it may be, I think it's intelligent. Intelligent design for me exists. Maybe not in the way the Bible says it, but I don't know. But if we go back to the baser elements, how is that so bad? My dog is coming to check me out. Hey, good boy. He gets loving. He's awesome. Where's my big boy? Oh, my big guy. My big man. He's Odin right here. He's a bum. Oh. My girlfriend's dog is right here, but I can't pick her up. She's huge. So I forgot where I was at, but that's okay. The thing I want to get to today is the Matrix Masters. I know I kind of skipped with that, but I'll cover that relationship in the next video. So what I'm going to talk about this time is the Matrix Masters. So the people within the Matrix, within the society, who have mastered techniques and programmings, most of which have been passed down generationally. They've mastered these programs that do this very thing, that outsource our human potential and put us into this relationship that's a kind of self-enslavement, a kind of self-subserviency to others and to other entities and institutions. Institutional entities, energetic entities, which is also something, it's not scientific, but whatever. Outsourcing our potential to these essential vampires that extract our vital organic expression and create their own existences for us to live inside of. And so the first thing I want to focus on, the elite. So we're going to talk about as well where this programming started was with the religious elite, with the church, with other religions as well. And organized religion is what this is in its entirety, is that it is about controlling the consensus experience of this thing we call life, which is still, again, very, very, it's not under our control really, but we try and create all these things to compensate for that very dark place in our experience that's basically says, dude, you can't really do much, about this whole thing. I mean, you can do a good bit, but you don't really have control over most of it. So, they've created these elaborate systems to convince us and confuse us and distract us from the fact that we're all going to die one day. So we're all going to figure it out, whether or not there's life after death. So why are we arguing about it? We're all going to figure it out. And at that point, it's too late to turn around and tell everyone else. And even, if there is life after death, who knows what it is? And also, if we did know, it would ruin the fun of dying and getting to that place. So why would you want to know? Again, one of those things. The whole afterlife thing, the Egyptians had a pretty cool way of doing it. That when you die, you go into an initiation stage where you're either trapped in the underworld forever in a place of pure desire and all those things, or you don't eat of the table, you don't eat in the underworld, and to pass on, and then you get to go into other reincarnations. But a lot of religions will say the afterlife is some heavenly place, a beautiful place. So it kind of turns that, you can always, when you become uncomfortable about your death and about all these things, about how life is transient and changing all the time, and there's nothing you can do about it, how we're supposed to feel good about it. We're supposed to feel good about death. We're supposed to feel good, like, oh, no, but it's a good thing. We're gonna ascend into heaven, and everything's gonna be okay. And whether or not that's true, you don't know that, and we all will know that whenever we get there. And it's also an incentive for them to say as well, oh, but by the way, you won't get to that heavenly place if you don't act well here and how we tell you to act here. So you better do what we say, or you're going to this other place that's the opposite of that place. And so, this is where the original mechanics, kind of the original programming begin, is in religion, in old world religions. Not specifically a lot of the ancient ones. The ancient ones do talk about an afterlife, like Egyptian, all those things where your deeds are weighed on scales, and things like that. Anubis grants you at the gates of the underworld. All those things. I think they're all very valid. But again, they're experiential. So if you don't, again, we'll all experience it one day, so we'll all know, but it's too late, again, to tell anyone here on the earthly plane that it exists. So there's almost no point in talking about it unless we have some kind of near-death experience and can be like, this is my experience, but it might not be the same for everyone. It's like, okay, that's awesome. Like, people assign way too much importance to other people's experience. And that's when we get people being like, oh no, my heaven is the real heaven. My hell is the real hell. My version of the afterlife is the real afterlife because it's written in our books. It's written in our holy books. You get this, what Alan Watts calls a spiritual one-upmanship, where you say you're more spiritual than that person, you're better than that person. It's this subhumanizing thing, this dehumanizing categorization, where you go, no, my ideas and beliefs are better than yours. My experience of reality is better than yours, and is more important than yours. And it also plays into that as well. But, the elite, also, it goes into the social elite. And this goes into media, all sorts of things. And these people control how people talk, what trends are, how people communicate to each other. There are lots of social interests that kind of keep a lot of linguistic things, a lot of language-based things, a lot of social interactions that keep these programs in place, especially by people who are what I call agents. So these are the people who would call, geeks back in high school, oh, you're a freak because you're not like us. You're this, you're that. It's the whole bully mentality. And I've definitely represented that before. I've been a bully in the past. And it goes into this very dynamic and complex being maintained through these different interactions. As well, it goes into information control, which is the next one. And that's, if you control the way people talk and the way people interact and the relationships they have to everything, you can control their reality. You can control anything. You can control their thoughts, which is the next one, thought control, meme control, and reality control. So this is how they establish dominion over existence, over what we think and feel, what we see, what we say, who we assign ourselves to, who we align with, who we communicate with, who we don't communicate with. And it's a very structured intention, but it was an intention born in the major religions. It was an intention born in Catholicism. It was an intention that was born in the old world religions that deified and made godlike the experience of a few individuals to then control the rest of the population. And that's what religion, in that respect, organized religion, was originally just a tool for controlling the consensus population. So I'm going to go a little faster through this because I've already touched on a lot of this in my other videos, but I still really wanted to create intention in this video for these different things. What the next one I'm going to talk about is supplements. The Matrix Masters have made many supplements, many extraction technologies to extract your human potential, your life force energy, or your what I call the well of being, or your well-being, your fountain of youth, your Garden of Eden. They have a lot of supplements that they use, and they usually create some kind of hypnotic symbology to get you to get these things and buy these things. Usually some cool design that's gonna, whoa, this is cool, you know, something to hook your brain and pull you into it. And this includes gadgets. It includes a lot of the things I've listed. But first we can go into supports, which I talk about as being shoes. You know, in one of my videos, I said, there's no greater expression of our separation from nature than our inability to walk on it with our bare feet. And this is a really profound expression, because as well, when you walk on the ground with your bare feet and your bare body, you feel how rough and tough nature is and how soft and just wimpy your body is to it. You understand it is very grounding. You're like, oh, so nature demands that we be hard, that we be strong, that we be capable and applicable and efficient and effective, and also intelligent, like very intelligent. So supports as well go into all sorts of things. I go into it with like weight belts and CrossFit, all the gear. Now I'm a certified trainer, but you know, I don't work anywhere. But you know, I've been a part of the CrossFit culture for like 5 years. And there's a lot of stuff that people sell that you don't need at all. At all. Like, you don't need running shoes, that's for sure. You don't need a lot of the things that they tell you you need. You don't need weight belts to deadlift. You don't need any of those things. Those people using weight belts for deadlifts are doing it fucking wrong. They're not developing their posture enough. They're not developing the key aspects of a deadlift well enough. So they overcompensate by bending their back like this. And then they have this shaking thing going on. Yeah, that's because they're lifting it wrong. So, not dissing CrossFit, again, love it. A wonderful measurement tool for measuring fitness, measuring all sorts of things, developing a kind of broader, more inclusive fitness. I'm a level 1, so I mean, I do know a substantial amount about it. And at one point I was obsessed with it because of this reason. Because I put so much importance on these other things that have nothing to do with my expression, that are tools, that are accoutrement to my being and my expression. Gadgets as well. So this also plays into gear. Things you put on yourself. Start to question why you do them, because a lot of people will tell you need things that you really don't. Like, I immediately think of when it's like really cold outside, immediately putting on 100 layers. So your body's always in this state of comfort, in your comfy, cozy little air-conditioned house, you're comfy, cozy all the time. Your body needs resistance. And I remember this Joe Rogan podcast with Aubrey Marcus and Dr. Dan Engel, where they talk about this as well. Your body needs resistance in order to be healthy. It needs resistance in terms of maybe lifting things, maybe body resistance, physical resistance. It also needs food, in a sense, nutritional resistance. It needs stressors on the body to recover from, to reacclimate, to recover, to regenerate. To do all of these things, you have to break down muscle and stress your body in order to become stronger and more effective and more applicable. So these gadgets and these things, I know everyone doesn't do the Wim Hof method, but he's called the Iceman because he can climb a mountain in a bathing suit. He's incredible. And he's climbed a summit at Mount Everest literally in a bathing suit just by doing his breathing technique that he's mastered, over the years. It's not really his technically, but it's just a breathing technique. Instead of putting all those layers on them, have them develop that ability to resist, or at least adapt to the surrounding environment before putting on all that stuff. Before putting a million layers on them, they better be able to walk out into an ice storm and keep themselves warm, body temperature wise, use energy to adapt to the environment in a substantial way before putting anything on for safety. They need to be able to perform first in the field, in the operation. Okay, so next one is appliances, odd objects, technology, things like that. Appliances and odd objects. Appliances, things like that. They're wonderful tools, but if you can't do things without them, they become toxic. They become a crutch, a dependence. They become something where someone else has your power, your potential. Someone else has it on a string, and they're pulling you in their direction, and you're just like this puppet with like all these strings on it. You're just like, and eventually it rots yourself. If you had a bunch of supports and you were just moved around all the time by everything else, you would become this rotten, disgusting, flabby thing. Your body needs resistance. It needs uncomfortability. It needs something there to push against it so that it can fight back. Nutritional supplements. If you don't have your baseline nutrition down, supplements are literally like throwing a firecracker on firewood and expecting it to light. It's like beep, beep. Even if it's a huge firecracker, like let's say, there are lots of things, biohacking techniques, smart drugs, things like that, entheogens, all sorts of things. Anything, a big help to you. It's literally like throwing a firecracker on a fire. is it gonna light? Probably not. Like it's literally like throwing little crackers on the fire. Oh. And then after that it goes, and then all the smoke settles. You're like, oh, I'm left with this wood. Again, there's no fire. There's nothing there below it. There's no fire below it. But if you spend the time, get really uncomfortable, and sit there and fucking start a fire with one of those sticks for hours, like until you finally get the fire, and then you basically have an orgasm. You're like, yes. And then, oh, here's Lucy. Hey there, Goose. I'm trying to do a video. Come on, get down. Lucy, down. And you're sitting there building a fire for a long time, and you finally get it, and you're like, oh my God, yes. And then you get out of the fire and you build it, and you're shivering and cold, and you're like building the fire up until it's really big. And then you made the fire. And then what those firecrackers are, it's just like a extra light. It's just extra light show. It's just extra show. But it will never, ever blanket or cover up your fire. It will never, ever blanket your ability, your applicability, your capability. It will never diminish that. It will never, ever take the place of it. And you will have a different relationship to everything. If you reclaim, I call it reclaiming your autonomy. Reclaiming the confrontation of that self, confrontation of the primal, the primary part of you, the primary essence of your being is a better way to say it. So we go to tech application versus self-application. It goes into the same thing. You know, an app on your phone. How applicable are you without the app? How applicable are you? How well, how well can you get around town without your Google Maps? How well can you do anything without that help? And we all know what that help is when the time comes, when you're about to do a task or do something, and you immediately pull something out to do it with. You know, how well, I'm not talking about like things you need, like if you need a screwdriver to screw in a screw. I guess you could say in that respect, using a handheld one, being able to do that really efficiently before using a... Again, it's kind of that same effect. What are you without the app? What are you without the shoes? What are you without all these attachments? What are you without it? And I usually make the metaphor. You see a huge, imagine seeing a huge warrior in the forest with a huge sword, and he's, chopping people's heads off and just running around. He's huge and jacked and just like fucking, because you have to be to wield a sword like that, a huge sword, you have to be really strong. Every kind, just because it's, when you do the sword movement, you do the most organic movement that's almost possible. It's almost in line with fighting, but add like a weight onto it. So whenever you lift up, you're accessing all these muscles, you're, creating this humongous range of motion whenever you do it. And fighting, especially with sword and with clubs and things like that. That's why I love On It so much, is because they have those steel maces and, all those things, sledgehammers. But you see that warrior out in the forest fighting and chopping people's heads off. Oh my God, what a fucking awesome warrior. And you take his sword away, what is he? He's really strong. He can fight really well because, he already has the movements down. You just do it differently with your fists or with your elbows. He has all the movement down. He has all the foundation down to be really awesome, to defend himself, to fight without the sword. Now, most of the population today is going to be like a little scrawny dude with a giant, 70-pound broadsword. He's just sitting there holding it like, oh, like dropping it on the ground, like you can't even lift it up. And that is the majority of the population. We have been desensitized that that part of ourselves, the foundation, has been dumbed down, desensitized, and now we can't even pick up our own sword. Now we can't even use it for what we need to. We can't defend ourselves. We can't put forth our own agenda. We can't put forth our own actions and our own expression. And I don't mean that we should go out and kill people. That's not what I'm saying with this metaphor. I'm saying, what are you underneath your tech? What are you underneath your gear? Whatever it may be, ask yourself that. Are you anything? Because I wasn't much of anything without all my gear on. Without my coffee, my brain didn't work that well. Until I started doing, I started working on my posture. I started doing cold showers in the morning, like cold exposure, started breathing through things and not immediately going to something else. I wasn't much under it, honestly. Since I stopped drinking coffee, my reflexes have improved. All of everything, my whole life has improved just by giving myself distance from those things, not demonizing them. Again, it's not the thing itself, it's your relationship to the thing. It is that there isn't intention in it, that the intention is from the thing itself and its effect on you. So it has the intention for you. Because a plant chemical is just an expression of a plant. It's the intent of the plant. Its effects, everything like that. It's the expression, it's the intent. So whenever you do something like coffee or entheogens or any kind of chemicals, just know that the intent is made by the plant and its organic expression. So what's happening is that the coffee is giving you the experience. The coffee is saying, this is your intent for me. This is the intent. And with that relationship you have to it, basically, it's giving you the experience. It's giving you the intent when you need to do it. But if you turn this relationship around, you can say, I see you there, coffee. I see what you do for me. I see what you do whenever you get into my body. Okay, so now I'm going to create intention through you. Now I'm going to create intention with you. Okay, you have this effect. All right, now I'm going to use it to make me better, to make this, to give me a sword. Coffee is just like the sword. Any of these things, shoes, anything, just like the sword. If you can't function without it, well, then you have a crutch. So coffee is just a sword. And what that does is that creates the relationship of, okay, I'm going to drink coffee and I'm still a motherfucking warrior underneath it. I'm still a warrior. And after that coffee wears off, I'm just fine. I'm just fine. After that coffee wears off, after anything wears off, after I use an app, anything, doesn't matter. You guys, chill out. Go on. Easy. Go on. And after you, will you hush? All right, just 1 second. I need to let them out. Alrighty, sorry about that. But, what is, how much of a warrior are you underneath all of those things that you have attached to you? Now this goes into, clothing, shoes, everything else. And, autonomical reclamation. So reclaiming your autonomy is the most important aspect of this relationship to things, to everything in your life. And it begins right there with the relationship you have with things in the external environment immediately. And where this goes to is language, because this is how you communicate. This is how you communicate to other people. This is how you express your experience, yourself, everything. So these matrix masters have created linguistic protocols. Okay, this feeds into the progressive ideology of the modern age, something that a lot of people are trying to combat because it's toxic to the human spirit and the human potential. So these linguistic protocols go into how people use language to dehumanize you, to dehumanize your ideas, to basically shoo everyone away from you, in a sense, to lead other people away from your ideas. Things like conspiracy theorists or racist or just words like this that basically, you're just a, and they could be any derogatory word used in an argument to make the other person's argument seem invalid. So calling them stupid or some kind of word, the whole thing today is flat earth and round earth people. And they call, round earth shills and flat earthers and all these little names that people throw out. Snowflakes is a word that a lot of people use, and I use it just kind of as a joke sometimes, but all these kinds of words, homophobe and like Islamophobe and like all these intricate different words that we use to essentially make someone subhuman. So if you're a homophobe, you're not really human. This is what it's saying. This is its meaning, is this kind of interaction. So you're not really human. You're something else. You're something that isn't aligned with this higher state of consciousness that I am. I'm way better than that. I'm not a homophobe. I'm not an Islamophobe. You could call me a religiphobe if you wanted to be honest. Like, I don't like organized religion. And I don't know, I feel very wary about it. And honestly, and I don't like it. Anyone else can practice it. I don't care. But I'm not okay with it. I'm kind of anti whatever. I don't give a fuck. That's the thing, is that you have to make yourself primary. You have to make yourself primal. So whenever someone says something like that, oh, you're just this or just that, it's like, well, you can say that, but I'm not actually. I'm not. And you saying that doesn't even bother me because I know it's not. So no, I'm not a homophobe. Like, never been called that, but if I was, it would just be like, what? That's ridiculous. I have friends, people I know who are gay, all those things. It would be like, if you know you're not those things, if you know you're not racist, but someone just calls you that, to make a weird joke or something, like, you're not. You don't hate people because of their skin color. If you do hate people because of their skin color, I mean, that's pretty superficial. So it's like, that might be something to address. But these linguistic protocols basically try and trap people. So let's say if someone says something you don't like about African Americans, then immediately you're racist. To a lot of people, you're racist. Okay. And this goes into the progressive ideology or the progressive movement, which is a lot about victimization and creating basically eternal victimhood within individuals, so that there can be an also eternal demonization agenda. So that we've created all these little victim identities to where we can all be victims and minorities, like, you know, transgenders, all those things. So we can create victims. And then at the same time, immediately you have to create predators, or you have to create the demons, the demonizers, the people who do this oppression. So you have to create this endless conflict mechanism to where these people, there are constantly new victims being created of a kind of illusory way that they're being oppressed, parts of their identity that usually people aren't even okay with expressing in public at all. Like, honestly, I could care less if you're gay or whatever gender you want to ascribe to. It doesn't matter to me. But, you know, I don't go up to people and just shout out my sexuality like, hey, I'm a cisgender male, and like all these like stupid fucking pronouns that don't mean anything. It's like, okay, well, I mean, how is that a conversation starter? Like, and also, if I call you a pronoun or any of these other things, how is that oppressive? How am I being that way? You can just tell people, and they'll be like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, let's actually talk about something. Like, have a conversation. Like, maybe get into a topic that's interesting. Maybe, I don't know, talk about anything. Like, why are people so fixated on identity? And it is exactly this dehumanization agenda that has created the progressive movement to basically make people obsessed with things that are superficial and not obsessed with things that are biological. So what you are as a human being is biological. Your primal self, you know, whatever you want to assign yourself to be, is organic. It's biological. So it's primary. It's the thing that's most important, not your transgender identity in the greater society, whatever that's supposed to mean, because gender has nothing to do with sex. So the progressive ideology leads into the linguistic victimization and the linguistic demonization, so creating all these different subtypes of people that are subhuman, that aren't really human because they don't accept your identity, ideology, weirdness. And that goes into subhumanization. And then as well, whenever you create these concepts to keep people inside of and say, oh, you're a this, you're a that, you're a this, and not just take what they have at face value, like, oh, you're a human being with experience, I'm going to try and learn from that. This is your experience. Let me bring you into my experience. Instead of creating that relationship, you just burn bridges. You just go, you're a fucking racist. And then you just run off. You're a fucking white privileged male. And that shit is so stupid too. Like, just all of the privilege fucking nonsense bullshit. Like, if you're so underprivileged, why are you giving your attention to the same people who oppress you? It just doesn't make any sense to me. There are plenty of white people that are in poverty and crime and all of these things in a greater degree too, that are killed by cops a year, that all those fucking stupid things, they're all meant to distract you from this exact thing, is that what you say defines, what your intent is, what you do, what you say, all of these things. Being with yourself, being okay with yourself is more important than what all these people think, than statistics about random people in random circumstances. Because statistics are like 50% wrong, like, all the time. And I used to be obsessed with this, trying to prove everyone wrong. And it's just like, Black Lives Matter and all of just this insane shit that I mean, yeah, there might be some kind of oppression going on, but there are also way too many laws that put way too much emphasis on cops and give them way too many unnecessary things to do to protect us. Okay, I know cops, that's their thing. They protect people, but they're given too many responsibilities. They're given way too much. So it puts an unnecessary burden on them. And also, it's like the things they have to deal with are horrible. Like, no one gives them sympathy, really, except for some people who are like, yeah, I mean, they have a shitty job. Like, literally every day could be the last day that they're alive. Like, no wonder they fucking do that shit. Like, sometimes it is completely unreasonable what cops do, but other times it's like, of course, like, they're in a high stress situation with guns, with people, with gangs, with like all this crazy shit that you don't have to deal with, you fucking pussy. So no one ever takes the stance of like, okay, let's get all the information. It's always, oh, you know, this tiny percentage of black people are killed more than white people. So, you know, fucking cops must be racist. And then they like go on these fucking massive rants and tell people that, you know, white people are horrible. And there's this huge white privilege agenda where there's just this group of white people who's, you know, basically just, there's a ladder of privilege and no one can get past that. It's like, god damn, everyone's trying to get the acceptance of fucking these white privileged males for some reason. It's like, what do you want from them? Like, even if they are up there, like, because they're elite individuals, and I've gone into it, and they're part of religious organizations, people who own the central banks, own the media, own all these things. You know, they're Jewish, they're Jesuits, Freemasons, they're part of secret societies, they're part of the Illuminati, they control money, they control everything, all of this, all the Matrix, they control it. Yeah, and they're probably all white. I mean, I don't know about all of them, but a lot of them are white, old males. And so, yeah, but that doesn't, the color of their skin has nothing to do with it. It has to do with their beliefs and the mechanics of those beliefs, which is what I've been talking about, is this is what they do. And they have roped a lot of you into something that they created for you so that you wouldn't get angry at them. You would get angry at this ephemeral white male thing that doesn't fucking exist. It's these individuals who are poisoning the species, okay, intentionally. And we can very easily get back into a power position where we take back ownership of our lives and take back ownership of our process and how we interact with the culture and the society. So even if there is some privileged white male out there, won't really bother us because we don't put more emphasis on superficial shit like status and money than we do on our own self. So we always have something to fall back on, no matter how far people get. There are plenty of people who are black who are very successful. I'm really tired of hearing this shit about white people having a better chance at everything. Actually, it's more like Asian people have supposedly a better chance at everything. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like there's a higher wage gap. Wage salaries, okay, and then there's also outside of your salary, there are also other incomes you can have. So the wage gap between Asian males and white males is larger than the gap between men and women. So what, are Asian males now oppressing white males? It's a dumb fucking statistic. It's literally the color of someone's skin. It has nothing to do with what they are, who they are, how they came to be, why they're in this position they are, why they chose you over someone else. Like, fucking A, it doesn't mean anything. It's a statistic. It's supposed to mean nothing. It's literally supposed to be like, okay, this many people have this, so it could mean this, it could mean that. I don't know. It could mean a lot of things, but it definitely doesn't mean exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so just went over linguistic prisons. This is what happens, is these people with these, you know, empowerment things where they're like, we're going to make you powerful. We're Black Lives Matter. Because, we think Black Lives Matter, just a little more than every other race. Like, that's our thing. Really like black people, for sure. I don't know about everyone else. I don't know about the white people getting killed by cops. I don't know about that. Doesn't really matter to us. I don't know about the Asians getting killed by cops. The Vietnamese, I don't know about I don't know about Mexicans getting killed by cops. Like, I don't know about that. Yeah. So it goes into these prisons that they create. So they rope you into these weird systems that they have to where you are now under the impression that that group is going to help you or do something for you. That group of people is going to accomplish your empowerment, accomplish your acceptance from the white male, which is never going to happen because these people don't operate like that. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Psychology. And what I mean by these white males are never going to accept you is because that's not how this works. So even if they did give you the same wage, even if they did give you the same everything, everyone equal shit, they would still control everything if we don't reestablish our relationship to everything. So they'd still have control of everything. They would just be giving you the illusion that you have the same as other people. But you don't. You have less and less the more you strive towards that thing. And it's a cup with a hole in the bottom of it. So you're constantly trying to fill a cup that has a hole in the bottom, because there is nothing for your primal self, your primary self. There is nothing for it in that realm, in the realm of status and materialism. However useful materialism is, it is not you. It is not your identity. It is transient. It's temporary. You're going to die one day. Shut up about people's skin color. So, since you're constantly seeking to fill a cup which cannot be filled, you will always be empty. You will always be void. And even when you are accepted and you do get your pay wage gap, whatever the fuck you want to call it, you're going to feel the fucking same because you haven't accomplished anything. You haven't accomplished anything substantial and truly satisfying, which is connecting with yourself and other human beings. So, we go into the psychology of this programming, which has existed for thousands of years, as I have said before. So, we go into the programming, which started in religion, moved into school, moved into politics. We used to have real politics at one point in time. And then moved into politics, and now it's really just a two-party system where basically it's just a gigantic distraction technology. So it's creating these infinite number of conflicts so that we can all be distracted by them while they do a bunch of shit behind the scenes. It's the Wizard of Oz thing. Oh, I'm the great blah, blah, blah. This is where you get all your shit, your information. It's, with media and all those things. So one of the things about it is the programming went into, politics, and now it's going into YouTube and Facebook and technology and all these other things. So it finds its way into everything. Then MK Ultra. So it goes into MK Ultra mind control. So this is another one. The programming is very similar to it. So what they do is, from a very young age, is they create this rift or this split in your personality to where you're real only by yourself, to where you're primal only by yourself, where you think primarily only when no one else is around, no one else to see you, no one else to hear you. You're never yourself unless you're alone. And what this creates is a split in your personality, a rift in the mind. So that basically, they can turn your identity in the culture using the hive mind think mechanics and everything else that you need to be this identity, supposedly. And that this identity is more important than that real self you only experience when you're alone because, you know, you're a fucking crazy human being, you're unacceptable, and, you know, all of those things. And then language plays into this as well, because language goes into how we express that thing. So then it creates more language prisons for us to live inside of. And we are programmed this way from childhood. And those MK Ultra experiments, if you think those are the only ones about that, you're wrong. There are still ones that are going on now that we have no idea about. And it'll probably be declassified in 30 years when it's too late to do anything about. So that's another tactic. Classroom psych mechanics. So another thing, hive mind think. I already went on this in my other video, so I'm not going to spend much time. But the hive mind think mentality, thinking about everyone else primarily and not yourself primarily. The big reason why a lot of people are so fucked up these days is because they think in that respect instead of thinking about their own expression first. Other people's expressions are important. They are valid. They are substantial. But yours is primary. You put your flag there. Say, no, this is me. This is me. Y'all can't handle it in a reasonable way, then fuck off. So next one is going to be agents. So the agents of Hydra, the many heads of Hydra, part of the dehumanization, part of the elite. This goes into celebrities, because celebrities, it goes into fame and fortune as well. This obsession with materialism, materialistic ideology, superficial, basically the top layers, the finished product, the illusion. So celebrities goes into fame. So fame is basically just the attention someone has on someone. So the ability of a individual to steal everyone's attention away from themselves and everyone else and bring it to them. That's what fame is. Being famous is getting everyone's attention on you. It has nothing to do with your abilities, really, your intelligence. It might come with that. Your intelligence might be a part of it, but it's not. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with your ability to manipulate other people's attention, to bring them in. This goes into iconism and icons, which is kind of like what celebrities are. The ability to convince people that they need to concentrate on you more than you concentrate on yourself, or that you need to concentrate on them more than you concentrate on yourself. Okay, so it's these celebrities and icons, famous people, fortune, having a lot of money, having all these things. It's a very intimate, it's a very delicate process, but it's a very intimate way to get your attention and take it away from really, really important things and focus them on other people's things. And the plan here is, the complete plan from all the way back from religion, is to get you focused so much on all these other peripheral things that are like the Matrix, get you focused so much on the illusion that you don't access the primal, the organic, the primary, the primordial. And it is a desperate attempt to do this because they are so scared. They're so afraid that if you access that, you will find actual satisfaction. You will find the well of being, the fountain of youth, the garden of Eden, Atlantis reclaimed. You will reclaim your homeland, your forge for identity, for self, for all of these things. You will re-access your forge, your foundry, And that is really threatening to this kind of structure. Again, it goes into the matrix stake and the residual self-image. So when, what is his name? I don't remember his name. The guy who rats everyone out in the Matrix, I forgot. Sitting there cutting the steak with Agent Smith, and he's like, "I know this steak isn't real," which I kind of seem to mean I didn't do anything to get this steak. It's not real. It's not like I hunted an animal, a deer, shot it with an arrow or chased it down for 5 miles and stabbed it with a spear and had its blood on me, and it wasn't real. It's just a steak. It was handed to me. It's funny because this plays into the Circus Master programming with the steak that they give you. And it's so weird that I thought of that because I just realized that I use the same metaphor. But the Matrix steak says, I know this steak isn't real. My brain is telling me that it's juicy and, delicious. And he says, but, ignorance is bliss. And that's the thing about it is really getting back to your primal self is not bliss. Okay, it's not like, the comfortable little place that you have. You and your comfortable little identity where nothing changes and everything's okay, guys, everything's okay. And you just stay with your blinders on your whole life. Don't focus on that stuff. That's weird. What you do is, if you do that and you don't access the primal self, what happens is you value the residual self-image, which is what Neo has when he goes back into the Matrix. He's like, whoa, that thing isn't there anymore. Like this primal self, this real self that's weird and there's stuff on it. It's gross, there's germs. The real self is icky and messy and smelly and strange, but sacred. But really us, really me, really you. They get you to love this fake thing, this thing that is just clothing on your body. It's just superficial. They get you to love the illusion more than you love the jungle. They get you to love your cage before ever seeing and feeling, loving the jungle. This is one of the most important things, and it goes into what my next video is going to be about, which is the matrix, the primal matrix relationship, which goes into this exactly, is that these individuals want you to, whenever they say, oh, you need these shoes, they're saying, I want you to love the illusion of your feet and your legs and all these things being strong enough and durable enough and powerful enough to run without them. We want you to have the illusion that your feet are really strong, that you have structural integrity, that you can run properly, that you can do all of these things. We want you to think that and then not have that. And this relays into a lot of influences that exist in this world, with the many heads of Hydra, and then you have to watch out for the many agents of Hydra that are here to outsource your human potential to a bunch of other things. They're here to put plugs in your body. They're here to work you like a puppet. They're the puppet masters. The puppet master playing his strings, the Metallic song, I believe. And if you want to be a puppet your whole life and, do a little dance and a little jig for everyone, that's fine. But I will tell you, I don't want to be a puppet. And I want to create a community of people that share an empowerment agenda. Share an agenda that puts the importance on the individual, that puts the importance on the self, which is what I call the alpha. The alpha in all of us. The alpha self is that self expanded, compounded, complexified. So getting back to the baseline, and then from there, pushing the edges of it as far as you can go with your mind, with your body, with your spirit. A lot of people get their spirituality from things as well. Ayahuasca is a big thing. People are going down to have spiritual experiences in the jungle. Nothing wrong with that necessarily, but when you have that relationship, when it's the thing with the intent, that's where the spiritual experience is. How are your spiritual experiences here? What are they like? Here, right here, where you're at now. Why is this any less spiritual than in the jungle? Why is any of that, even going to yoga, it's your intention about it. Why can't you have a spiritual experience driving your car down the road? It's you. You're the problem and the solution to everything. Everything in the whole fucking universe. You are the problem and the solution. Wonderful. Wonderful thing. And it is just about this relationship. And I want to hear as many people as I possibly can. I know I have to deal with the fact that a lot of people aren't going to watch this, and that's okay. But I want people to experience this, being a part of this, and I want to build a community. So I hope that people become a part of this or want to become a part of this. But I look forward to hearing from anyone who does want to become a part of it. So I will leave you with that. You can check out my podcast page or my artist page. I have an artist shop on Threadless at Become Alpha Podcast Artist Shop, where I have some cool designs. I want to create a platform of genuine expression. So, totally cool wearing clothes, doing all those things, but taking back that we can create our own message on our clothing, on the things we wear, on our appliances, on all sorts of things. That's one of the things I want to do, is create an alpha expressions platform. So create a platform where alpha expressions from people who really are really impassioned to access their real self, their alpha self. That's what I want to create for everyone. I hope you all enjoyed this video. My next video is going to be about the primal and matrix relationship and the reclamation of our God self, or our alpha self, which once existed long ago but has slowly been devolved. We have dormant and latent faculties and attributes that now can be revealed and readdressed and reassessed, and all of these things. It's very empowering and very hopeful, but I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for anyone who's watching. See you next time.